Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is another beautiful day to be in the kitchen. Now, I have received several questions from you guys about what is in my spice box. And some of you are curious as to where I get my little spice boxes. So I was doing some cleaning, getting my spice boxes cleaned and refilled. So I figured I would take you along and show you what's in my spice boxes, what types of spices, and also I'll share with you a spice that I absolutely love, but it is the stinkiest spice in the whole wide world. It is so smelly and so stinky, you have to keep it far away from anything in your kitchen. And really in your house. I mean, clothes, shoes, closets. You do not want this spice to come in contact with anything that it could lend its smell. But I'll share with you why you should absolutely keep it tightly sealed in your kitchen. That is what's coming up in today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out anytime I upload a new episode. Let's get to chatting about spices. Now, before I actually start to chat about spices, I'm going to chat about my little spice boxes. Now, I purchased these little spice boxes, I want to say right around 3 maybe years ago, and I purchased them on Amazon, and they have been one of the best additions to my kitchen. So they come in a pack of 4, and they come in these handy dandy little trays like this, so you can keep them next to, you can put them in a drawer, or you can keep them next to your spice rack. And they also have these little they're seals underneath the groove so that nothing can sneak into your spices. And also they come with these cute teeny weeny little clear plastic spoons, and they're very easy to work with. All you do is just pull it open, scoop out some spice, and you're good to go. If you follow my channel for some time, you have seen me use these little spices, and I like having them, which technically spices shouldn't go right next to the stove, but we all keep spices near the stove because nobody's running all over the kitchen if you need a half a teaspoon of chili powder. So I keep in my little spice boxes the spices that I use the most, because other spices, these are like my everyday spices. And really in many kitchens all over the world, cultures, you would keep your everyday most used spices in a sort of container where you can easily get them. And then your least used spices, you may have to go on the hunt for those. They're not just sitting right there. In India, of course, is mainly what I'm thinking about, in India and in many other South Asian countries. I think they're called spice derbas or masala derbas, because, forgive my pronunciation, I'm butchering it, but the word masala means spice in Hindi. So you would keep your masalas or your spices, the ones that you use the most, you keep those the most accessible. Now, I don't have salt or pepper in these. That's because my salt, I keep in a large salt crock. And my pepper, I keep peppercorn so I can grind it fresh in my mortar and pestle. So those are not something I consider I necessarily just want to have in one central location. I do have my salt in one central location, but it is not near the stove. So think of this as your go-to spices. And that is what I use my little handy dandy spice trays for. Now, since I'm chatting about it, I might as well go over each spice as I refill my containers. My containers are all nice and clean and dry. So I will chat about all of my spices while I refill each container. So I have my boxes labeled, some of them labeled, such as this one. This one says chili powder. I have them labeled. This is only for those who are not regulars in my kitchen. I don't need to label any of these spices because I know automatically by smell and look what they are. But for those who are not familiar, or if you have maybe somebody popping in that doesn't work with your spice rack all the time, you may want to label them just to make it a little easier. But for me, I don't really need to label them. And the more you use them, the more you'll get used to them too. It's just like peppercorns or black pepper. Everybody knows what that is. So I'm going to start off with the first spice. This is the one that for me is the most controversial. Now, this is chili powder. And the word chili powder actually means everything, but it says nothing. And I'll explain to you what I mean by it says everything and it means nothing. So chili simply can be any pepper that has a little kick of spiciness to it. It could be jalapenos, it could be anchos, it could be any kind of, it could be chipotles, it could be any kind of pepper, guajillos, it could be any kind of chilies that is dried and ground, and you end up with chili powder. That's why when you get it from the grocery store, usually it can vary from batch to batch. So for instance, this chili powder that I bought at my local Aldi, it contains chili pepper, doesn't say what kind, and then it says paprika, salt, spices, doesn't say what, garlic powder, and canola oil. Now, if you wanted to replicate your own chili powder, that's where you could really step in and do or mix whatever blend of chili pepper you like. Now, this chili powder that I have here, this is ancho chilies, and these are whole dried ancho chilies. And so this is simply just ground down to a fine spice. I'm assuming they removed the seeds. And then you end up with this very beautiful, kind of a burnt brownish color. So this is this ground. How do I know? It is because I buy my spices. I prefer to get my spices from, for me, it is local. But for some of you or most of you, it won't be local, but I consider it local. The DeKalb Farmers Market. It is an international market my family have been shopping at before I was born. And I continue to shop there myself when I'm back home in Atlanta and I'm visiting or just planning to go shopping. I go through, and that is where I bought all of these spices. But this is where I get my spices, because I know they are the true spice and not necessarily a mysterious blend of spices. And there's nothing wrong with these, by the way. Nothing wrong at all. But it's better if you know exactly what you're getting. So this is ancho chili powder, and it's very smoky, but not like it's not like super punchy smoky. It's more like a deep, darker, smoky pepper flavor. And it's very good. You can use it, especially in beef recipes, because it's a little darker, a little smokier. You can use it in chicken, but it's a lot nicer used in, say, steaks or things like that. It makes an excellent dry rub with, other spices and things. So this is one of the spices that I keep on hand, especially if I'm making tacos. This flavor really, really starts to sing when you're making things like tacos. So there goes the ancho chili. And as I say, if you refill your boxes and you get familiar with your spices, you know what spice is without you having to label the jar. But if you absolutely want to label it, by all means, label it. Now I'm going to show you another chili, which is the exact similar, but this one will be more familiar to you. This is chipotle powder. Now, this is ancho. and this is chipotle. You can see the two colors, they're very different. But both of these are chili. And if you just said chili powder, well, you could grab either one of these and it wouldn't be, you know, like, oh, it says chili powder, I can grab either one. But they're very, 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 very different. Chipotle is very bright, roasty, smoky, spicy, and a little bit sweet smelling. This goes really, really good in a barbecue rub where you would be adding some sugar to it. This goes well in a, if you're not using sugar, and you wouldn't want to use sugar with this one because it just doesn't, I mean, obviously you can, but for me, this one just does not scream barbecue like the chipotle does. Now, this is smoked, dried jalapenos. That is what chipotle powder is, just like the chipotles in adobo. This is the same thing. It's just in a dried powdered form. And this is, this is spicy. No doubt about it. You don't want to overuse this because it is spicy hot. I don't mean spicy in terms of, you know, like, oh, it's spicy. No, I mean hot spicy. Now, out of all my spices or my chili powders, my chipotle is the one I use the most because if you know me, you know I like a little bit of spice in especially chicken or beef or something like that. And even it goes good with vegetables too. If I'm brave, I will put some on popcorn, but I warn you, because it is spicy, it can make you sneeze quite a bit. So just a fair warning. Now here is another pepper that you could call another type of chili powder, but we don't think of it as a chili powder. This is smoked paprika. And this is where, you know, smoked paprika, it's very, very fruity and smoky. So looking at the three, you can see obviously a very, very rich color difference between the three of these. This one being the brightest, this one being more of a deeper burnt sienna color, this one being darker. And then I do have another chili powder that I don't keep amongst these, but it is a almost, it's not quite black, but it's very dark and it is very, very strong. So you use a smaller amount. But this I use more chicken or something like that. Because it's so good and it's so smoky, especially if you're doing something like orange chicken or marinating chicken. This is so smoky. You notice none of these spices are making me sneeze. Even though I am sniffing them, they're not making me sneeze because they're not that kind of spice. You wouldn't want to try that with black pepper. But okay, now that I've said that, I'm probably gonna sneeze. But this is another one spice that I keep close by. So I'm going to go ahead and refill. Now, I do want to say that all of these have a tendency to be lumpy. If you notice, this one is slightly lumpy. All of these has a tendency to be lumpy. And there's really there's no help for it. You can use a tiny spice sifter, which I do have one for sifting. You can use one of those when you are measuring your spice, especially if you're doing something like fried chicken and you want the spice to be evenly distributed into your seasoning or your flour mixture. You can use a little spice sifter. But at this point, when you're loading it up, I wouldn't really worry about it because they would re-clump anyway. So that is the smoked paprika. Here I've got the chipotle powder. And then here I have my ancho chili powder. So these are the chilies. We're done with these. I'm going to set those aside over there. Now, let's talk about some other spices. This, of course, needs no introduction. This is turmeric. And it has a very earthy smell, as well as a super bright yellow color. Now, this is a spice that you would use in very traditional in many different Southeast Asian dishes, also some African dishes, and you'll find it in some soul food recipes, particularly Jamaican recipes. You'll find it really It's a spice that goes along well with other warming spices. So whether that's ginger, cinnamon, clove, savory recipes, not sweet obviously, you could add turmeric in. This is also the secret to those nice yellow homemade dill pickles. Now, the interesting thing about turmeric is it does stain. As I've already got my apron nicely dusted with turmeric today. Another thing about turmeric that I recently learned is the stains are not permanent. So, say for instance, you're using a wooden spoon. We've all seen our wooden spoons turn yellow when you use something that you make an addition, you include turmeric. But don't fret about it. All you need to do is to take that item and lay it out in sunlight. Now, take the turmeric spice jar here. And I can tell right off the back, this one is my turmeric jar. No label really needed. This was the same color as this just a few minutes ago. And I set it in the sunlight and you see how the color, it goes from this to this. And just like that, just set it out, let it get a hold to some sunlight. It only took it maybe 2 or 3 minutes and the yellow color simply disappeared. So if you're worried about staining things or your cutting boards or anything getting stained with turmeric, set it out in the light and it will, it'll clear up right away. Obviously it won't, my little spice jar, if I let it sit out, it probably will turn, but I doubt if it'll be clear again. But that is why you devote turmeric things to turmeric. Now I'm going to go ahead and refill this. And I'm actually going to be careful because I don't care to set everything that I own out in the sunlight today. So I'm just going to be a little bit more careful with this one. Turmeric is a spice that unless you use a ton of it, you probably don't need to buy this, but every so often. But again, that depends on how much you use. Okay, set that aside. And I'm going to set my turmeric over here. And you can buy turmeric root, by the way. It's a little short, little bitty, about the size of your finger, and about the thickness of your finger too. You can buy it fresh, and it's more of an orange color when you buy it fresh versus this beautiful deep golden yellow. So that is the turmeric. Turmeric is also one of the secret ingredients in my fried rice. You must use turmeric for me. You must use turmeric. And I'll share a fried rice recipe with you guys, Lord willing, coming up very soon because it's delicious and it's not that difficult. But I always add turmeric to it. Now, let's see, what's the next spice? Now this is my favorite spice in the whole wide world, and that is za'atar. Now you can buy this ready-made, as this is a ready-made blend, but you can also make it. So when I run out of it, I simply make it. It is a mixture. Now, before I say that, there is an actual real spice named za'atar. And you can find it, but you really, really have to look for it because it is not, it's not exactly scarce, but it's not a bountiful spice. It comes from the Middle East. And it's not a bountiful spice. You can find it grown and you can find it for sale easily in places in the Middle East. And you'll find the actual za'atar spice. But the most common is this blend, which is oregano, thyme. There is sesame seeds, obviously. And there is another spice that I'm missing, but I forgot which one it is. But I know the main component is oregano, thyme, toasted sesame seeds, and sumac. I'm sorry, which I have sumac in my cabinet. That's another spice that I keep. It's not an everyday spice, but I do keep dried sumac. So those are and you can make your own. You put those together. And of course, the lesser amounts of the stronger ones, such as thyme, you wouldn't want to add too much thyme. It would overpower the sumac and the oregano. But you can make it, I have, and you can find a recipe for it online too, very easily. So I'm going to refill my my za'atar spice container. Now this za'atar is delicious with any kind of a herby chicken dish, such as if you're doing roast chicken or you're doing, I'm wasting quite a bit here. Let me stop because this is, we travel far for these spices. Well, like, I think of myself as like a little spice caravan when I'm coming home because I'm like, I got this and I got that and this comes from this faraway land and that comes from that faraway land. It's such a blessing that we can get spices from all over the world nowadays. Incidentally, one of my absolute favorite passages in the scripture in terms of cooking and work in the kitchen is from the book of 1 Kings. When the Queen of Sheba, 1 Kings chapter 10, when the Queen of Sheba travels all the way from her home country to visit King Solomon, and she brings spices. And I can only imagine what kind of spices it was that she brought. I mean, they must have been, I'm pretty sure it was spices that we probably knew about, but I'm sure there were spices that maybe we don't know about. And I can only imagine how delicious those spices that she brought to King Solomon in Jerusalem from her own country. Boy, if I could have just been there, be nosy and find out what they were. Okay, so that is a za'atar. And as I say, this is really good in chicken recipes or fish, if you eat fish. And I don't want to just say these are good for meat. Any of these spices are delicious in vegetable dishes. And you could also use some of them in baking recipes, such as this spice. Now, these are teeny tiny little seeds. They're very, very small. And they are carom seeds, or you can also call them in their original tongue, ajwain seeds. And they are mostly from India. Forgive me if they are in other places, but the only country I'm familiar where they originate is India. And they are super teeny tiny little bitty brown seeds. They have a very, very herby smell. The closest thing I can say they remind me of is going to be celery seeds, but they are not the same thing. But if you are pickling or canning and you want celery seeds, or really if you're making potato salad or anything like that here in the United States, we would add celery seeds. You can substitute ajwain or carom seeds. But as I say, they are not exact swap out. So now this is a spice that I use in baking. Whenever I'm making naan or any kind of flatbread, I love to throw some carom seeds in there. It's delicious, and you wouldn't expect so much flavor to come from these teeny tiny little seeds. So I have this one labeled. Now this is one jar that I do have labeled, because that way, if someone's in my kitchen and they might not know exactly what it is and I'm not there to tell them, they can Google it and say, what is this and can I use it? Or at least they can yell, what is such and such? And then I can tell them carom seeds and what to do with it. It's not every day somebody's in my kitchen rambling through my spices, though, I have to admit. So I'm going to go ahead and top this one off. And you can find any of these spices, you can find them online. You can definitely find them in international stores. So there is the carom seeds. Now, for another spice that we are all familiar with is Italian seasoning. Now, you know what that is. You may not exactly know what it entails, Italian seasoning, but you know what it is. Now, the interesting thing about spice blends is that they can really be any blend of any spices. But for Italian seasoning, it typically contains oregano, marjoram, basil, rosemary, thyme, savory, sage, rosemary. It's just all those blend of spices. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting one of them, but that is typically what the blend is. So I'm going to, that smells good. Now, you all probably already use this because this is very easy to find in the grocery store. It's kind of like onion powder and garlic powder. They're not difficult to find. And I like to buy mine in bulk because I know it's freshest where I get it from. I know it's very fresh. And you can tell they're fresh because it's a nice bright green. If it's a darker or muted green, then you know those spices are starting to get a little along in years and or in age, and you know, use those up a little faster. You don't have to throw them away, but use them up just a little bit faster. Now, last but not least is another favorite spice of mine. This is chaat masala. Now, that is another Southeast Asian spice, typically Indian. And this is something else that you would find in an Indian household spice box. By the way, I love Indian food. Absolutely love Indian food. One of the main reasons why is because they use such a rich variety of spices. Indian food, I'm not going to say, I don't want to say it's nothing without spices, but if you don't have spices in Indian food, it's like, you know, did a real Indian give you that recipe? There's not enough spices in there. So they have some of the richest spice cuisine in the world. And the blend, the uniqueness is unique to each region in India. But it is also unique to each family as well, because one family maybe would put this in, whereas another family would put that in. So the chaat masala is and I'm trying to recall this perfectly. It is made dried mango powder. Well, actually, I have a list here. So I did cheat for this one because I knew I wouldn't remember all of the spices. But the chaat masala, this is typically, as I say, this can range from household to household, family to family, region from region in India. But typically it is always mango powder, dried mango powder, and cumin, coriander, ginger, black salt, black pepper, asafoetida, and a type of a chili powder or powdered chili. But again, as I say, each family could put something different. You know, one family could not put chili powder. Another family could just use regular salt. Don't use black salt. It all depends on the family. The same thing with garam masala. The word masala means spice, by the way. So if you have like chaat masala, which is this one, you have garam masala. And then, of course, you have masala chai, which is spiced tea, which I dearly love. As a matter of fact, I just had a cup a little while ago. But the word masala means spice. And so the word that comes before it typically kind of tells you what kind of spice it is. And it can also give you a hint as to what to do with it. Now, garam masala, which I do have in bulk, but I have this jar that I keep on hand in case I need to kind of refresh my mind of what's in garam masala. So this one, because as I say, it could range from region to region. It contains cumin, cardamom. It typically always contains cardamom. Cinnamon, black pepper, cloves, and mace, which is similar but different from the chaat masala, which contains mango, cumin, coriander, ginger, black salt, asafoetida, and chili powder. So you can see the difference between these two spices. You really wouldn't swap out one for the other because they do have a very different flavor. I like them both. This one, however, is a little bit stronger to me than the chaat masala. This one I love to use in, you know, those little bit more heartier recipes. Whereas chaat masala is delicious if you use it in lighter recipes, such as just, you know, like chicken, roast chicken or whatever. This one I would definitely put in if I was making burgers or a steak or something like that. But the cloves give it an interesting flavor, as is the cardamom. That's another spice that I haven't, and I won't get to talk to you today. I love cardamom. If you can keep it in your pantry, it's good in sweet and savory recipes. Same thing with cinnamon. Here in the United States, we typically use cinnamon in sweet recipes, you know, like apple pie, cinnamon buns, cookies, or whatever. But cinnamon really is a dual spice. It can be sweet or it can be savory. And I like to put cinnamon in my chili. But that's a different topic today. So I'm going to refill my last spice, which is my chaat masala. Now, because of the mango powder, which mango powder in Hindi is amchur powder. I have plain mango powder or amchur powder, and it is always clumpy, so it kind of makes the chaat masala itself to be a little bit clumpy. But as I say, all of these spices will have a certain amount of clumpiness to them. And there's no need to worry. Just sip them when you use them. So that is the last spice to go in my spice wraps. A question that people often get a little bit confused about with spices is a shelf life. And, you know, is it safe to put them near the stoves? Because I run through my spices so rapidly, I don't have a problem with having my everyday go-to spices near my stove. But if you wanted to put them away on a spice rack, away from a heat or light source, you know, if you know you don't use them quite as much as maybe others, then if you want to keep them in a cabinet, you can keep them in a cabinet. Nice, cool, dark place. Most spices have recommended a 6-month shelf life. But really, if it was in a year, I wouldn't throw the spice away. I would just be aware of that this may be a little bit older spice. But as I say, you can always tell by the color for these spices that were green, such as the Italian herbs or oregano. Those spices, as they start to look a little darker, fennel as well, when it starts to look a little dull, you know it's getting along in years, and you may want to use that up a little faster and maybe use a little more of it because the flavor won't be as intense. Now, let us talk about the world's stinkiest, most delicious spice. Now, this is asafoetida. And there are a couple ways you could pronounce it, but that is how we pronounce it in our household, asafoetida. And it's the gum of a tree. It's the resin of a tree, which is dried and then powdered. Now, this is a very, very, this spice has been used for many, only Lord knows how many. It's an ancient spice, let's just put it that way. My grandmother actually used it. Now, people used to use it, and still do, use it as a medicine. I've read reports of people taking a piece of the gum resin before it's powdered and tying it on a string around their neck, and they wore it throughout the winter. They believed it warded off colds and flus and other sicknesses. I've also read people say, well, you know, wearing that around your neck and it's so smelly, you wouldn't catch a handshake, let alone a cold, because nobody would ever want to get near you. That is actually partly true because it is very smelly. Now, I keep this away from other spices because everything will smell like this. But it has a reputation for stinkiness, but it also has a reputation as a very, very good and healthy spices because it does have many health benefits to it. So it's not just, you know, put it in some curries or whatever. It has a lot of health benefits, this particular spice does. Now, why use it? Once you use it in a recipe, you'll be like, oh my goodness, this is so good because it brings out so much hidden flavor from the recipe. For instance, there's a particular recipe that I like to make, and I call it a vegan chili, although it is not at all chili and probably is an insult. And so it's called rajma curry, and it's made with red kidney beans. And asafoetida is one of the spices that you add. This spice, you only add a very small pinch. Maybe like a quarter of a teaspoon. A half a teaspoon is a little bit too much because it is strong. But when it hit the pan at first, you're like, ooh. And then once it continues to cook and it starts to mellow down, you're like, Now, why, and how that is, I don't know. But I do know that it completely changes when it is heated and cooked into a dish. This is not a standalone spice, by the way. So all of these other spices, with exception of turmeric, you can use as a standalone spice, but not asafoetida. This typically is always used along with other spices. So consider it like, you know, the secret ingredient in most or a lot of Southeast Asian dishes. Now, you get this, I buy mine from a health food store because, again, it is also a medicinal herb. It's not just a spice. But you can also order it online or If you're in a Southeast Asian store, you can pick up some. Just make sure that you store it away from your other spices. And you might want to label it so people can, somebody in your house is rambling, going through and smelling things, and they go, oh my goodness, what is that? Now, my nose is accustomed to it. So that's why I'm able to hold it without going, because my nose is accustomed to this. It's very pungent, let's just put it that way. But as I say, once it cooks and it mellows down, I have tried rajma curry, and if you don't add this to the rajma curry, it becomes completely different. You're like, something missing. So that little quarter of a teaspoon makes a massive difference. So that is the world's stinkiest spice that you should keep on hand in your pantry in a tightly sealed jar. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video all about spices, which really is one of my absolute favorite topics, because I hear people say quite often, oh, I don't like a whole lot of spices, or I don't like spices, or they don't like a certain type of food because it's just too many spices. But here's the tip about spices. You don't have to dump tons of spices into food for it to be well seasoned and very flavorful. You can use a pinch. If you're new to any of these spices, just use a pinch, and then you can work your way up and find out what you like and what you don't like. Also, you don't have to use them all. Maybe 1 or 2 in a recipe until you get yourself used and you learn the spice balance that suits you best in your kitchen. So the next time you see some spices, pick some up, go into the kitchen, add a pinch, and see what you think. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video on spices. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and share a comment with me. Which spice is your favorite spice? And are any of these spices new to you? And if you have any questions about any of these spices, always feel free to leave me a comment, and I would love to hear from you guys. And for those of you who are in the countries of origins for a lot of these spices, if there is any tips or comments that you would like to share about these spices, please leave a comment and let me know, because here we are all here on my channel. We're all here to learn, and I love learning from you guys just as much as I hope you enjoy learning from me. So please feel free to reach out. And if I bungled something, because I'm pretty sure I did, if I bungled something or got something wrong, you guys just leave a comment and let me know, and I would definitely be more than happy to correct myself. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and the good Lord willing, I will see you guys again in another video. Take care, y'all. Bye.